a Canadian radio sanctuary podcast.
Hi, John. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Been doing some shows. We had a fabulous show on the weekend. We did a show that we closed the band, the Fretless. We're based in Vancouver for most of their existence, I think. They are amazing, and they played along with me for a couple of songs, and I had an Indigenous singer who performs with me over the years off and on. He was there and sang with us, and we had some Indigenous dancers dancing with us for one number, and yeah, it was a great concert. We got 3 standing ovations during it, so it went well.
Well, you can't complain about that, eh? Yeah.
No.
Could you take us back a little bit? Let's say there's somebody listening right now who is a newcomer to the world of Lennie Gallant.
I was born in Rustico, on Prince Edward Island, a little village on the North Shore of PEI.
First of all, condolences to you for the loss of your father recently.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. He was a great soul. Anybody who ever met him liked him immediately. He had a great gift like that.
His name is George. Is he and your family influential in how you got into being a performer?
They are, because they were very community-minded. My mom played piano by ear just for parties and stuff like that, sing-alongs, and she was very creative. They and a group of their friends, about 6 of their friends, would often put together these variety shows with skits and so forth, comic skits that my mom would write. And they were one of the original small halls troops, I guess, in a way, because they would go around to various villages and put on concerts in community halls. Mostly they would do this to raise money for events that had occurred, whether someone's house had burned down or they had a sick child or something. So it was always a charity event. They just did it for fun and to help out in the community. And as soon as I knew 3 chords on the guitar, I was enlisted and ended up. That's how I started playing music, I guess, was performing a few songs in those shows.
I think a lot of us in the rest of Canada imagine the Maritimes because of the Celtic connection and the Acadian connection. We think of it as everyone seems to be born with a fiddle in their hand or a guitar. Everybody seems to be musical.
Well, not everybody, thank God, or we wouldn't have anybody to play to. But per capita wise, it is quite astounding the number of musicians that actually are able to make a living playing music from this part of the world, and certainly world class Celtic musicians from Prince Edward Island and Cape Breton and other areas as well, and some pretty good songwriters. I was talking to someone about this the other day. The population of Prince Edward Island is about the same population as the town of Barrie, Ontario, and yet we have got quite a number of songwriters that actually travel the world and make their living playing from music, or traveling around Europe, Australia, or Germany, or whatnot. And we had 3 Celtic groups that were doing the same. From such a small population base, it was quite phenomenal. And so a lot of that is, I suppose, because of the fact that from generations past, the main way of getting through the long, hard winters was to entertain yourselves, and learning an instrument and playing music seemed to be a very popular thing in so many communities. So I suppose a lot of that was handed down to the next generation and so on. That's where it probably comes from. And in my case, I didn't have a lot of songwriters in my past heritage, but I did have a couple of uncles who were very much into songwriters, and I used to go up to their room after my schooling was done and pillage their record collection and get into Bob Dylan and Prine and Lightfoot and anybody that I could find that was writing songs, and that's where I sort of became interested in it.
Speaking of songwriting, I can recall, if I go back to maybe around the early 2000s, at least as far as a national TV broadcast, Bruce Guthrow's Songwriters Circle was on TV coast to coast at one time, but I know that's still alive in many respects within Halifax and within the Maritimes. Can you tell us a little bit about that connection, because you've appeared with Bruce a number of times?
Oh, a great many times. In fact, I just did a couple of his song circles about a month ago in Halifax. They're a lot of fun, you know. I think, again, songwriters from this part of the world down here have almost taken putting song circles onto an art form, and that you kind of have to be part comedian and part songwriter to put them on, because they tend to be quite funny as well as very poignant, you know, when people are actually playing the songs, and the songwriting is remarkably strong, I think, in this part of the world. You know, over the last decade, I've been blown away by some of the younger writers that have come along that have been so prolific and so intuitive with the writing. You know, it's refreshing to see that kind of thing.
Not to get away too far from your career, but there are people like Gordie Sampson. Some have gone to Nashville to be writers there. Is that becoming quite common, that there's some writers that are leaving the Maritimes?
There's a number of writers from the East Coast who really made a nice mark down there. In fact, Bruce's son, Dylan Guthrow, is actually doing quite well right down there now. Bruce and I were talking about it. He's following in Gordie's footsteps, and then some of us have gone down there. I used to go down there 4 or 5 times a year and write. I wrote quite a number of songs with Gordie and recorded them in his studio, and got so many songs that people have never heard yet that I've written down in Nashville. But it is a draw for a lot of people. Nashville is definitely a songwriting town, and as a songwriter, it's exciting to be there. It's also a tough town to you know, the veneer of Nashville is very, very welcoming, but it's you know, to really crack that market and get, you know, people who have a massive following to record your songs it's a little trickier than it might seem on the surface. You know, even Gordie might go a year without, you know, having somebody, you know, without getting a cut, and he lives and works there all the time, and he's a fabulous writer. So you know, it's not an easy market to be in. You need a lot of determination and a massive amount of talent to be able to pull it off, to just, you know, do the songwriting thing in Nashville. But there are quite a few Canadians actually pull it off.
Let's get back more directly to you and your career. One of your best known songs is, and there's a number of them, but one of them is Peter's Dream. Can you tell us the origin of that?
Well, that song was written in my hometown of Rustico. My dad has a little cabin down by the water, and right at the very height of the fisheries crisis, a few of us were gathered down there one night, having a few drinks and talking about the state of our community and so many communities not unlike it, who were suffering deeply because of the mismanagement of the ocean, the East Coast Ocean, and overfishing and factory freezer trawlers and whatnot, and how the fisheries crisis had really come to a head, and what was going to happen to so many small communities. And a lot of them I had visited, Newfoundland and various outports around the East Coast, and we talked late into the night. A lot of that conversation was reverberating within my thoughts throughout the night. I woke up early in the morning and was listening to one of the fishing boats in our community head out, and I sat down, and the song just kind of spilled out onto the page. It felt like it almost wrote itself. One of those gift songs that every now and then you might get in your career if you're ready for it. It has played a big role in my musical career. It's been recorded by quite a number of artists, and was recently entered into the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame. So I'm very, very honored and very proud of that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Abegweit is the Mi'kmaq name for Prince Edward Island. Is that correct?
Abegweit is the name that is the original name for Prince Edward Island, the original Mi'kmaq name. Down through the generations, people have called it Abegweit. The actual original pronunciation would be more like Abegweit, but it turned into Abegweit over the years. And it means something akin to cradle on the waves or laying on the water. And it is also, you know, as you know, it is the title for my multimedia production that I wrote about 8 years ago called Searching for Abegweit. Mm-hmm. And I was contracted by the Confederation Center of the Arts to write this show at the beginning, and we thought it would run for one summer, but it ended up being so popular. We sold out every show that summer, and it ended up being so popular that we've run it now for 5 summers, and this will be the 6th that I'm putting it on again after taking a couple of years off due to COVID. We're going to perform it again this summer, and it's amazing to me, the response to the show. It's basically songs and stories that I've written over the years that have something or in any way touch the life, the history, the legends of Prince Edward Island. And I've written a few extra songs for the show, and somehow they seem to tell a story of PEI that a lot of people hadn't heard or known of before, and it's marked with hundreds of paintings by my incredibly talented and prolific sister Karen that are projected onto a huge screen behind the band as we play, and it's amazing how her artwork and my songs seem to mesh really well, and so it's really an audiovisual feast. We've had people who've come to see it 5 and 6 times, and people come drive up. I've had people drive up from California just to see the show, and fly in from Germany just to see the show. It's really amazed me how it seems to have touched people, and how it seems to have endured through the years.
Some of us have seen the one performance anyway of that on YouTube. It's excellent.
Well, the show isn't on YouTube, but various cuts from the early years are on YouTube. I wish we had something more recent up on YouTube, because the show just got better and better. But so I think there are some various cuts from the first year we did it that are up on YouTube. But now it's so much more cool with the lighting and the stage design and so forth than what you see there. But it gives a sense of some of the songs, for sure. Anyway.
Yeah.
And of course, the stories never made it up onto YouTube. Like, the songs are interspersed with all the stories, and which are usually quite poignant and sometimes very funny, and so it makes a pretty good show overall.
Well, it shows the importance of live performance, because it brings so much more to any song, doesn't it, than just hearing the recording?
Yeah, I think so. I think so, and if you get the right image to go along with it. The way, and my sister her work is so brilliant that it really brings a lot of the songs home for people when they're checking out the show.
Another great video is Sequoia. Where was that shot?
We shot that in California, in the Sierra Nevada. I was very fortunate because my partner Patricia and I went down there originally we thought, well, we'll just shoot the video and use photos and images of the sequoia trees. And I said, you know what, we need the real thing. So found some travel money and went down there. I hired a cameraman down there. We were only down there for 3 days, and we just lucked out so well. We had a guide that took us off into the Sierra Nevada to the perfect place among these beautiful elders of the planet. We had great weather, and nothing really quite prepared me, I got to tell you, for singing that song Sequoia at 6 a.m. amongst those giant trees and no one else around but Patricia and I and the cameraman. It was really quite moving. I had to take a few tries just to get through the song. It was so moving, I have to admit. We're since affiliated also. If you watch the video, at the end of the video, you'll see there's a link there to a couple of organizations, and one in particular, the archive. I always stumble on the name. It's not the catchiest name. The ancient archival archangel movement, who are trying to replant sequoias all over the world, millions of sequoias, because as you may possibly know, only 2% of the sequoias that existed 100 years ago still exist, mostly because of logging and so forth. And they're very important trees because they are one of the natural world's greatest sequesters of carbon dioxide, and so in that respect they always have played a huge role in helping maintain the climate on the planet. And so if you watch the video on YouTube, at the end of the video you'll see there's a link to this organization that is trying to reestablish them all over the world.
We do have a few big trees like that in British Columbia, as you know.
Well, interestingly enough, it was when I went to the Cathedral Forest on Vancouver Island that I originally had the idea for the song, because at that point I hadn't actually been to a sequoia forest yet. And so the Cathedral Forest on Vancouver Island played a role in my writing the song to begin with.
Moving from the West Coast back to where your home is in Prince Edward Island, I understand that you're part of a movement. Bring us up to date. I may be behind in my information here, that wants to change the name of the Confederation Bridge.
Oh no, I'm not part of the movement, but I think it's a good idea. But I support it, but I have nothing to do with the move to do so. I mean, they wanted to change the name of the bridge to Abequate, or the original pronunciation Epiquate, and I think that's great. It's much more unique and much more appropriate in a way, and honors, the original inhabitants, the Mi'kmaq people of Prince Edward Island, who are behind it, who like the idea. So I think it'd be a fabulous idea. I never, the word confederation is just been used so often. I felt that when they named the bridge the Confederation Bridge, I said, oh, well, hold on, it's been there, done that. It'd be nice if they had something a little more original. So if they can name the island, the bridge to PEI Abequate or Epiquate, I think it's fabulous.
There's one of your songs that is, I will say, is a favorite. One of my favorites is Pieces of You. Now,
oh, thank you.
The lyrics, and a friend of mine actually pointed out this song to me some time ago, but this is only one little part of the lyrics, but I love the lines like, she says, I can't give my hand, take my heart instead. And that's just so beautiful.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you very much. I get a lot of response from that song, and I'm much appreciated of it. Everyone from Anne Murray liked the song very much, and I guess she's a pretty good judge of songwriting. She tried to set me up to write with her daughter after hearing the song, which we tried, and we didn't actually get it together yet. That's a song that was from an album that ended up making it up to the International Space Station. Former Canadian astronaut Julie Bayette took a number of albums from across the country up there, the physical albums up to the space station, and she took that one up with Pieces of You on it. And I think she had a whole lot more luck probably sailing her way through the cosmos than trying to navigate her way around Ottawa. But I was very honored and really thankful for the fact that she did that. She ended up later on presenting me with this beautiful photograph of my album floating in space and the planet Earth in the background, and that song is from that one.
You've done most of your albums in the English language, but you also have, going back to the Acadian roots, you have done songs in French as well.
I have, yeah. Acadian is my background, even though I didn't grow up speaking French. I didn't actually speak French till I was in my 20s, but I became very interested in my heritage. All of my grandparents are of Acadian descent, but three of them actually spoke French when they were young. But our community was smack dab in the middle of Prince Edward Island, and so the language sort of got lost. So I now live in an Acadian community on the western end of the island where the language still survives. And my partner is Acadian, who speaks French. And a number of years ago, I decided I wanted to start writing some songs in the language of my ancestors, and so put out 2 albums on my own in French, and then my partner Patricia, who's quite well-known singer in the Acadian world, her and I put out an album called Sirène et Matelot, which means the siren and the sailor. It's done really, really well. We've toured it, and it's got a lot of radio play on Francophone radio out this way, and I'm very proud of the fact that some of the songs from my early 2 albums have since become kind of Acadian staples. A lot of other bands have recorded them, and I was fortunate enough to co-write the song for the first Acadian World Congress, which was the first time that Acadians from all over the world, 100,000 Acadians from all over the world descended on the East Coast for a gathering, the first time since the Acadian deportation of 1758, 1755, and 1758 on PEI. And so, I've had a little bit of travail in the Acadian world, and I'm very happy that they seem to have embraced my work in that area as well. So it's been pretty good fun.
I don't know if you know this, but in where we live here in the Agassiz-Harrison Valley, there are many French who have been here for decades and decades. So that's something as well. So you'll feel a little bit at home in that sense.
Yeah, I played a Festival du Bois out there a number of years ago, and I really enjoyed that. That was where they celebrate francophone populations in BC, and that was very cool. I hope to get back out there again, do
Hmm.
that.
I see on the concert tour, this part I guess is officially a tour. July 5, 6, and 7, you're in Nova Scotia. And then you take about a week off, I guess it's travel days. And on July 13, you're in Penticton, BC. And then you come to where we are in Harrison for the Harrison Festival of the Arts on July 14. And following that, the next day, you do the Vancouver Folk Music Festival. And we're all looking forward to seeing you. I know your partner, Patricia Richard, is in your band as well. Have you got a rundown? Who can you tell us is in the band for your tour this time?
Well, Patricia, who is a very well-known Acadian singer, she was part of a multimedia show called Ode à l'Acadie, which was massively popular and actually traveled the world for 1,000 performances. And they're rebooting a week-long show for a week this summer as well. So it's her. She's a multi-talented musician, and her son, Julian Robichaud, who's only 19. He's a classically trained piano player, and he's a marvel on the piano. People are going to be blown away when they hear him play. He plays piano with us and sings, and just started playing with us. Just this year, Keelan Wedge on fiddle and bass, with a beautiful voice. She's really well known in Prince Edward Island as being this multi-talented artist, and I'm very honored that she's backing me up in this band as well. So between the three of them, it's a pretty powerful little band.
Well, we can't wait. And then after you're done on the West Coast, you go back around July 22nd. You do some shows in Canso, Nova Scotia, the Stan Rogers Folk Festival. And the reason I bring that up is there's a man who was a real legend in that area, Stan Rogers.
Oh yeah, he wrote some incredible songs, and it's such a shame that he was taken so young. I think he was just finding his groove, really. It's sad that he left us too early in his life, but he left behind a legacy of some amazing songs that have since, as you know, become Canadian standards. And it's cool that the folk festival is named for him. I played this festival quite a number of times. I'm looking forward to being there again. I've since become friends with Stan's son, and I know his brother and his mother and his mother and his widow, and so I'm connected somewhat to the family. I got to sing with a good many of them in the past, and so it's always it's an honor to play that festival in his name. Canadian legend, of course. He's brilliant.
Hmm. I think the song that always jumps out at me in my memory of Stan Rogers is, I believe it's Northwest Passage.
Yeah, it's an amazing song. And have you ever heard his son Nathan do it? I mean, it's kind of scary. Nathan kind of warns people before he sings it, because he just sounds so much like his dad when he sings that song. Brilliant song.
Wonderful. Before I let you go, I'm just curious, with all your Acadian roots, do you have any friendship, or have you ever touched base with Daniel Lanois?
I met him. We were both playing in New Orleans together at a show right after the big flood that happened down there. The big hurricane came through and flooded the place, and a bunch of Canadian musicians went down to do a radio show to try to help raise some funds. And we were both on the same show, and so we met very briefly. So I don't really know him well, although, except for that, but we have so many mutual friends. I almost feel like I do know him. And I recorded my Open Window album in the studio that he put together in Hamilton with Colin Linden producing, and Bob Deutsch, who was a good friend and worked with Daniel for years and years. He was the engineer on that album. So there's a kind of a secondhand connection to him in many ways. I'm a big fan of his music, big fan of what he does in the studio, especially. He's quite incredible.
Being a producer, he's overshadowed his writing and performing a little bit by producing some pretty big name people. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of his albums are my favorite albums. So he can create such a space with his music, whether it's Belladonna. I love that album, just an instrumental album, or I like his album Like a D. He's got such just great stuff.
Well, we appreciate your time today, Lennie, and we're looking forward to your show in Harrison on the 14th of July. And of course, anybody listening who's in the Vancouver area, July 15, 16, 17, you'll be at the Vancouver Folk Music Festival.
Well, I'll correct you on that a little bit. The festival is 15, 16, and 17, but I'm only playing on the 16th. I originally was supposed to play 16, 17, but I guess they didn't put out as many stages as they thought they were going to. And so, as it turns out, I'm playing on the 16th, on the afternoon of the 16th only. Okay. So I hope people in Vancouver do come out to that. But I'm so looking forward to the Harrison Festival on the 14th. That's going to be great.
All right. Well, I think the weather's going to be good for you then too. So there you go.
Looking forward to it.
I appreciate your time today. Thank you, Lennie, very much.
Thank you very much, John.
We'll try and touch base with you when you're in town.
That'd be fun.
Take care.
Bye-bye.